Welcome to the BS Roll at Night.
Nights.
I am joined by a Nicholas.
What up?
And that's it. It's just Nick and I again this week.
We're recording in the dark.
We're actually at night.
Yeah.
In the dark.
Like night.
Night. Normally we record like early evening and stuff.
Yep.
Now we're doing it kind of late. To reveal to the audience what has happened is we were supposed to record last week, but I wasn't feeling great. So then we recorded the day before we put up the podcast.
Yeah.
And now we're recording again for next week.
Like 2 days later.
2 days later. So that's the timeline. This will go up, I don't know, October or something.
11th.
11th, and we're recording October something.
6th.
So yeah, that's the timeline of events. So hopefully next week we'll actually dive into the campaign again.
Yeah.
We've been talking about kind of the D&D editions, original edition. First we did a timeline, then we did original edition, then we did first edition, and we decided to do something completely different.
And now for something completely different.
I love Monty Python so much.
Me too.
Not that we're going to talk about Monty Python.
No. But we're going to talk about D&D, the visual edition.
What does that mean?
We're talking about D&D, the movie.
The movie, like the 2000 version of the movie?
No. That one's terrible. Well, I mean, it's good in a terrible way. Or it's terrible in a good way. I don't know, however you want to do that.
I haven't seen it, and I've only heard really bad things.
I mean, CGI, awful.
Amazing.
The second D&D movie they came out with, which I think was like 2003, even worse.
See, I didn't even know there was a second one.
And there's apparently a third.
We'll have to track this down.
I think I can buy it for like $2 on Amazon Prime.
You can buy anything on Amazon Prime. It'll probably be like DVD and not even like the Blu-ray.
Oh, 100%. 100%. They wouldn't be like, oh, Blu-ray? Like, fuck no. They're like, we spent $20 on this movie. Because that's what the other movies kind of look like they paid for.
Amazing. Maybe we'll have to do reviews of those movies.
Oh, it'll be great.
Oh, almost like a live commentary.
And I'll say, like the original, well, I can't say the original, but the 2000 D&D movie, it had a few bigger actors that you've seen before. Nothing too crazy.
Right.
Second one, just no one that you knew except for the one guy who was in the first D&D movie in 2000, and that's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then there was the what was it, 80s cartoon D&D?
Yep. We'll have to watch that, at least an episode or two, just to see.
It's probably only like one season.
I could believe that.
Especially if it was like in the late 80s and it's Satanic Panic.
Oh, yeah. It got canceled real quick. Guaranteed.
Probably. But we watched the 2022?
2020.
Or did it come out this year?
It came out this year. 2023.
Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Yep.
We just watched it. We've seen it a couple of times now, but for this, we just had finished watching it.
Yep.
Washing it?
Yeah, we watched it and watched it.
Wow.
Yeah. Gave it a good old bath.
I've had a few drinks, even though it was a couple hours ago. It's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah, it's great. We're doing fine.
We're doing fine. So we're going to kind of review it and talk about it, and because it is about D&D. Yeah.
Yeah. 1 out of 5 dungeons. How good was it?
I would give it a good 4.
Okay, that's what I would do too.
Yeah, it's a good movie. There is some sort of, or some slowness to it at parts. Some of it is kind of like, but it's a fun movie.
Good jokes, some good action scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it.
It goes along with Dungeons and Dragons. Like when we were watching it, we're calling out, "Oh, that's this spell," or like the Red Dragon has lore behind it.
Yep. They actually. So when I first saw it, I saw it like the first or second week it came out. Me and Ashley went to see it. Ashley knows absolutely nothing about D&D, but she loved the movie. And that was what I thought they did really well, is they made it a movie that anyone can watch it without any knowledge about D&D, anything. And this, I would say this probably has zero relation to the older D&D movies, period. But then it's got good snippets and Easter eggs and lore out the ass about, so the nerds who really like D&D
Right.
can be like, oh, dude, that's great, because they've got the cities and the spells and the creatures and actual named characters and stuff that you run across in the lore of Faerun.
Right, which is the D&D pre-made campaigns all are in Faerun.
Yep.
Which is like the continent, right?
Yep.
And they have different cities like Waterdeep or
Baldur's Gate.
Neverwinter.
Neverwinter. Yep.
There's several other cities that we could probably
the Lord of Neverwinter in the movie, who is Lord Nevermember, is in this movie that they actually, called his name out.
Right, right.
Some actual specific, like the Red Dragon, and I forget what his name is.
Right.
But he's actually in it. They call his name out. I believe the Black Dragon that they point out at one point in time, also his name is in the lore.
Well, and the Cult of the Dragons.
Cult of the Dragons is brought up. The Red Wizards, the different enclaves that you can be a part of, or not enclaves, but like the Harpers, the Emerald Enclave.
Yep.
Those guys get shout outs. I mean, a lot of it has they did a good job at pulling information to throw in here.
Which, if you're a big nerd of D&D, you'll pull those things out. But in the long run of things, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth. You don't really need to know. It's just where they were.
Yep.
Same with the Dungeons and Dragons movies. You don't need to know Faerun or the Harpers or any. But it's a nice call out when you do know a little bit of the lore. Yeah. What are some things that you really liked about it?
Honestly, I liked when they're, and obviously, guys, if you haven't watched it, maybe don't listen to this episode because there's probably going to be some spoilers, and by probably I mean there will be.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! But so like the Displacer Beasts.
Oh yeah.
Like people don't run across those very often in campaigns. A lot of people probably, unless you're like, you really nerd up and go through a whole lot of stuff, you probably don't even know what a Displacer Beast is if you've done anything D&D related.
Right.
They don't show up very often, which, to describe it is like a very large 6-legged black panther with 2 weird-looking tentacles that look like Venus flytraps coming out of its back.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically, the tentacles can create images and make people look a different direction, which they do in the movie when they're in the maze. It's one of the biggest things I like is like the actual creature dumps. They had the gelatinous cube was in there. Owl bears.
The owlbear
that was in there. Obviously dragons and other things of that sort. But then even the mimic. Which is like the old school D&D, like anyone who thinks about it, the treasure chest that opens up and it's a mouth with a bunch of teeth and a long fucking tongue.
Right.
That part, like those things, get me a little giddy sometimes.
I get it. I would say the same thing about the spells, like just them nailing the spells. That's obviously Misty Step, or
yep.
That's Mordecai's when they put the thing on the vault.
Yep.
They shout out Mordecai, who is like this legendary wizard who creates a lot of these spells that you find in your spell book.
Yep.
For D&D. And so it was interesting that they had a lot of that in there. Yeah, I like that a lot too.
Yeah. But we've said it multiple times. Like, it goes from being super serious and trying to do something, and then your player characters step up and do what player characters do and just fuck shit up. That happens
in the movie,
every time.
Yeah, in the beginning of the movie, he's telling us his backstory. The main character, Edward.
Yep.
Is telling his backstory, and they're in prison. And he's telling his backstory, so you're getting flashbacks of what happened to him, how he was part of the Harpers and whatever. And right before they're about to end, where he ends his speech, Jonathan,
I think.
Jonathan.
I think they say it both ways if you really pay attention.
Yeah, who is an Aarakocra. So it's a bird-like creature, and there's a window behind him. So he grabs the bird-like creature and jumps out the window. And as they're jumping out the window, he's like, "But we've given you freedom." And to me, as a DM, I'm like, that is what the party would do. Like, no, all right. Well, you just
like I was gonna grant you your freedom. I was gonna give you what you wanted without doing your elaborate, ridiculous escape plan.
Right, that you fucked up everything. Now,
yep.
All right.
Or when they're in the Underdark and they're at the bridge and they're talking about this really convoluted, ridiculous pattern to get across the bridge so that you don't set the booby traps, and one person just accidentally puts their foot on the bridge, not even thinking, and then the whole bridge collapses, and he's like, I didn't really realize the bridge started here.
And then the DM has to come up with something to get them across because that was the whole thing. So then he finds, or they have this item all of a sudden that does this thing.
It's literally kind of like that. Like, oh yeah, you have the hither thither staff. What? That's just
a walking stick.
A walking stick. And then he twists it, and all of a sudden it goes from being a weird, crookedy looking stick to being very straight and glowing in magic. And he's like, it's the hither thither staff. And it opens a portal on one side and then opens up a portal on the other, and you can walk through.
Which is just like, I'm sure it's an actual item, maybe.
I don't know that it is. I think they made that up. Like, that's straight out of the game Portal.
That's true. That's a DM just homebrewing shit to get his party to move forward.
Right? Like, okay, cool. Like, you fucked it up completely. Here you go.
Otherwise, the story ends and we can't do the thing. Oh, yeah. A good time. And there's several instances of that. The failing upwards almost.
Yep.
Or falling upwards. Like the whole wild shape in the druid. She gets inside to where she needs to go and listens in, but then she's caught. And there's multiple failures that end up being her escape.
Yep.
Like she just keeps failing. Like she gets escaped, and then they find her again, has to escape again, turned into something else. Like it's just constantly failing.
Yep.
Like first she was a fly, then turned into a mouse.
Then a mouse, then back into herself, then back into a mouse,
and
then a hawk.
Yeah, I forget what the bird-like creatures are.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea what those are.
I'm pretty sure.
But she turned into a cat for half a second, walks outside, then turns into the weird ostrich-looking things.
Right, and then a deer.
And then a deer.
Which, again, is like a druid, failing upwards and going, oh, what the fuck am I going to do now?
Right.
So I'm going to change again. And then you end up using all your spell slots.
Yeah. I think I counted. She wild-shaped 8 times in that one escape.
Right.
Which I don't even think... I haven't played a druid to that high level, but I don't know if you can get to that many.
I don't think you
in
can.
general, and I'm just like, whoa, damn.
Eventually you'd get into like polymorph. I guess you could polymorph.
It's true.
But a polymorph is...
That's not a druid spell either, though.
Druids get polymorph.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
They do, I do believe. It's a high-level spell, though.
Yeah.
It's like a 6-level spell.
I think so. 5 or 6, something like that.
So I guess if you're casting it at higher levels, 9th level, and then...
Oh, well, here's another nice little tidbit. So when they're in the theater and he's getting attacked after he flipped gravity the first time and then put it back to normal,
right?
He was getting ready to try and cast a spell which had a verbal component, and the dude that was tussling with him, put his hand over his mouth so he couldn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can't cast the spell if you can't talk with a verbal component. So then he gouges his eyes, and then you can do it. But it was just like it. Some of it is like the subtlety of it all is like
touches.
wow.
Yeah, and obviously you can see the party level up. Like the sorcerer couldn't counterspell the time thing in the very beginning with the wizard, and then eventually can.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see the party kind of grow and then be able to do more things.
Yeah. But, and you look at it this way, Holga, who's a barbarian, pretty much the same shit all the way through. Like, to her, it doesn't look like she ever really leveled up, because just started off as a badass.
Right.
And stayed a badass, but that's just physical combat and that's it, so...
I mean, that's just a barbarian.
Yeah. But it's funny, like, when you really look at it, too, like, other than really being able to hit a lot harder and a couple other crazy things, but, barbarians are pretty much as good at the beginning as they can be at the end, in comparison, Obviously, they do get better, but...
Yeah. I mean, more hit points and harder hitting, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. They're usually pretty tanky in the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, most people have like 10 hit points. A barbarian can have like 16.
Yeah.
At level 1.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch the party grow. The one thing I am disappointed is they don't really do anything with Edward being a bard.
Yeah.
It's not obvious that he's like using inspiration or using any like hideous laughter and some kind of a bard spell at all.
I mean, I guess you could a little bit inspiration kind of sort of in some of the fight scenes where really he doesn't do a whole lot.
Right.
But it's like he always just comes into the very end to help finish off whatever is going on,
Yeah, I wish they would have played more into like what a bard is in D&D. He just feels like a normal person.
Yeah.
Instead of something a little bit more magical. Like, even the barbarian, she gets hit a couple of times and able to shrug it off.
Will actually start yelling, like going into a rage,
right?
Especially after getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the druid shape-changing and other things, and the sorcerer casting spells.
And the bard, or Edward, doesn't seem like they're really capturing the bard well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's just the one thing. He looks more like a failure rogue than he does a bard.
A little bit.
If he didn't have a lute, I would 100% just assume he's like a rogue or a thief. But it was because he has a lute the entire time that I'm like, okay, he's a bard. Right. But where's all your bardy stuff?
And where's like at least do inspiration? That's
right.
Like what a bard does.
Or at least have a magical lute. Something.
Because there is different classes of bard, like arcane trickster, and that's
rogue.
No, they can be arcane trickster.
Do they have an arcane trickster? Okay.
They do. Scanlan is an arcane trickster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he can cast a lot of magical stuff. That's where he gets Bigsby's hand.
Which we also saw that in the movie.
Yes. Yeah, he can cast a bunch of stuff. Mordecai's magic mansion.
Yep.
Again, Mordecai. There's other things that the high-level arcane trickster bard gets. My point is, Edward is obviously not that.
Yeah.
I think there's like the School of Lore. They do different things. They're more healing stuff.
But you still always have some sort of innate magic, whatever it is, even though if it's not crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen at all. They could have at least done something.
Yeah.
Even like I mentioned, inspiration, some charismatic thing, because he's obviously very charismatic in the planner and kind of the leader of the group, which the talkie boy usually is.
Yeah.
And that's all he does. So even the paladin gets a little paladin. He puts something on his sword.
Yep.
Zinc, right?
Is
Xandar
or Xander.
Is it
with a Z?
I know. I thought it was Zinc. Isn't it Zenk?
No.
Oh. All right. Yeah, you can obviously tell he's a paladin. Like, they nail a lot of the classes very well, except for the bard.
Yeah. I love the banter and the stupid plans they come up with too. Like, like when someone has low intelligence, they just say really dumb stuff, and it's like they play off that really well. I think with some of the characters, like, okay, cool. You're a sorcerer. You probably don't have high strength or dexterity, so you see situations where it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, I screwed this shit up. Or the barbarian, not intelligent and just says really dumb stuff that blatant, just like, oh yeah.
Like, when they go down into the Underdark, they go through a hole, and the sorcerer says, "Yeah, I'll go last." And that's party order. The squishy person goes last,
Yep.
usually. You have Helga, like, yeah, go into the city and she'll turn into a deer. Like,
She could turn into something to be inconspicuous in the capital or whatever, and she's like a deer. Yeah, because the deer's just gonna go in there and blend in with all the other deer.
and she's obsessed with potatoes, which is obviously a character choice.
Yep.
Don't bother her when she's eating her potato. Like, that's just typical dumb bard shit. Or barbarian shit that you do.
Yep.
Even our barbarian likes bugs.
Yep. Exactly.
Like, there's this... Every barbarian has their thing.
Yep.
That they're just dumb about. Oh, goodness.
Oh man, it's honestly it's the little things like that make the movie so much better.
It's true.
You come up with a plan. Towards the end, they're like, all right, plan A. Oh, plan A is not working. Okay, we're going to go to plan B. Okay, this is a really thought out and well-derived plan, and people are failing roles, like Tim was saying earlier, and then someone comes to step in to help, and then they succeed, and they get to a point where, like, oh, shit, our plan's falling apart again. And so Ed's like, all right, we're going to go to plan C. What's plan C? Plan C is plan A. Well, why don't we just call it that? That's got a bad stink on it.
Just to be able to the planning that the party takes, and it's an hour worth of planning, and it just all goes to shit every single time.
Right.
Every single time. Because all it takes is a bad roll. And so the plan completely goes out of the window. Yeah. And you can see that in the movie. Like, they have this very elaborate plan, Jen just goes to shit.
Yep.
Like they get the portal, and they're trying to get into the vault, so they have this portal thing. So they put the portal thing on a painting because they realize people are trying to bring riches into the town.
Yep.
So they put it on a painting, and it's a really brilliant idea to get the painting there. So they're going to cast portals, and then the painting will get into the vault, and they can portal there.
Yep.
Well, the painting falls on the ground.
Yeah. Just as something as dumb luck as like falls on the ground, and now you can't get through it because you can't lift up the painting off the ground because it's not how the portal works.
Right. It's just brilliant. And then the druid being able to, well, if I can just get a sliver, I can turn into a worm.
Right.
It's like, what are you guys doing? Stop it.
Always. Like, okay, we'll call that plan D. Well, isn't that just plan B? Yeah, that's got a stink on it.
They're in the games, they're in the maze portal, and they get kind of trapped, and they realize the only way to escape is through the gelatinous cube.
Yep.
So then Drew's like, I'll save you, trust me. And then it becomes a snake, and because she pokes a hole through the gelatinous cube with her finger, turns into a snake and is able to slither through and then save the party. And it's like, that's creative, but also, what the fuck are you guys doing?
In real life, it'd be like, all right, you guys are in the gelatinous cube for 2-3 turns. You guys have all taken 20-something damage of acid damage. Like, shit. Another thing Tim pointed out during the movie. So, they voluntold to do this. It's basically like Hunger Games, but D&D style, which no one ever actually wins ever. They all just die.
Yep.
because it's pretty much impossible, and it's just for betting purposes, like gladiator fights, whatever. But there's several other parties that are part of it, so you're going against other people. But Tim pointed out that the party or whatever from the old TV shows in the 80s has a little cameo inside this maze. So you see him like real brief, and if you know what you're looking for, you can see it when everyone starts running into the maze. But then they're getting ready. They find their way to the center, and then there's already a group in there, and it's the original D&D TV show group. Obviously in real life, not animated. That'd be weird.
Right. That's the green wizard and the very bright clothing.
Right.
That you would see in the 80s. Yeah, just good stuff. The red wizards are obviously
always dicks. Yep.
Always dicks in the D&D lore.
Yep.
Made bad guy.
Yep.
Well, it's actually, I forget the main bad guy is really one of his proteges.
Yeah, proteges, minion,
worshippers,
lieutenant
thing.
Yeah.
Who becomes the big bad to try to bring him back?
I think it was to extend their power outside of Thay.
Okay.
Because in actual D&D lore, the Red Wizards are pretty much limited to Thay. They don't come down further. So Faerun is, I think, kind of like its own country, and then like Thay is a country that's above Faerun.
Okay.
So you really don't mess with it much. You get a little bit of somewhat of stuff in the D&D 5th edition lore of Thay, and you can tap into a little bit of it towards the top of the map, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so like in the movie, they're like, oh yeah, the Red Wizards, they're all from Thay. That's kind of where their power lies. They haven't extended it beyond, but they're trying to, I think, extend their power further and take over more.
All right. Yeah, it's very heavily 5e influenced. I didn't recognize anything with older editions in the movie. I think they just really stuck to current D&D lore, as far as I'm aware.
Well, there's a lot more. I mean, first and second editions really didn't have any sort of lore. It was just kind of like, here, make up your own shit. There wasn't like, now where they have like all the source books and all this lore and all this stuff that comes from it.
Yeah, they had modules. They would have, I think, singular stories, like here's this abandoned thing that you go to and you have to figure out.
Right.
It wasn't like an entire continent with multiple cities and whatnot. It was very modular in a way, like singular, just almost one shot, so you could put together to make a campaign.
I mean, it was like, if you look at it this way, early on D&D was kind of like early on DC, where it was like, yeah, this whole DC universe, but all the movies that are made for DC are all just individual. Like, they didn't go like, oh, doing all these crossovers, whereas like newer edition is very much like Marvel, where they're all connected, they're in the same world, and if you really pay attention to the source books and pre-made campaigns they take you through, there is an actual timeline that kind of comes across with all of it, and you can notice like, oh shit, like we were here in this campaign and now we're here in this campaign, so
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What else about the movie? What are some things that you didn't like about it?
That's a really good question. I really liked most parts. I mean, the bard not really being what it should be.
Right.
Is probably my biggest complaint.
It sometimes gets a little slow when they're constantly walking a little bit.
Which is also like regular D&D.
A little bit, yeah. Normally in regular D&D, you go to like a campsite and something happens or something. There's a road event. That would have been interesting to have something like that in
it's
the
just
movie.
so weird. Like
some weird gnome trying to sell shit or something.
Right.
Just something.
A dude with a really big sack. Oh, you need some axes? Here, I have them in my large sack.
uh, yeah, that wasn't even supposed to be that way. I think the event was just like a random merchant that just sold random garbage.
Yep.
And
But you said he had a large sack,
Yep.
and we went with it.
Yep, that's typically what I do in this campaign. Something becomes something that it shouldn't be.
That's what we're good at.
The horses survived,
It's true.
which normally doesn't happen in D&D campaign.
Yeah, a lot of times they all die.
Yeah, I think there's parts of it that are slow, like the walking and the scenery gets kind of like, really, are we Lord of the Rings where we're just going to walk everywhere? But overall, I think it's a pretty good movie.
I would have liked more time in the Underdark, but I also get, the movie's not in the Underdark,
Yeah.
so you can't spend a whole lot of time. And I think that maybe that's another thing they could have touched on a little bit more. Like, they very, very brief went over Underdark.
Yeah.
And just made it look like, oh, the Underdark is a hole in the ground, and then it's just a cave system. No, the Underdark is separate than actual cave systems. It's like its own ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like being like, oh, yeah, the bottom of the ocean is kind of like this puddle over here.
Pretty much. The Underdark can get kind of spicy at times, and like the mind flayers hang out there.
Mind flares, you got Duergar, you got Drow, you got, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Like there's entire cities. Like I think goblins.
Goblins and not orcs, ogres sometimes can be in the Underdark. You got the spiders, dragons,
And dragons can live in the dark.
but I mean, like if you look at it, like the Underdark is equally as large, if not larger, than like the continent of Faerun in actual D&D. Like it's ridiculous.
What is that place in Skyrim that you always end up if you go into a cave? It has the glowing everything.
What?
Blackreach?
Yes, I want to say yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah,
Where it's just huge.
Yep.
You go in random cave. Oh, I'm in Blackreach now.
But that's kind of what they made it seem like in this, and that's not really the Underdark.
Right. It's massive. It's supposed to be an entire like continent.
Yep.
Of Faerun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like some of the plot is kind of vague at points. Not really well thought out, I guess. Like it like you don't really care that Edward's wife dies in the beginning because you have no real attachment to her.
It's true.
And then they kind of get rid of the wallop of Helga dying by having a revive.
Yep.
So it kind of takes out a little bit, but then you're just hoping for the sequel at that point.
Yeah.
Which the movie did not do well in theaters, anyway.
I don't think most movies do all that well in theaters anymore.
Unless it's like a Marvel movie.
Even some of the Marvel movies that have come out have not done that great.
It's true. I think Oppenheimer was a big hit and Barbie was a big hit. I didn't see
either one.
I sailed the high seas for Oppenheimer, but I didn't finish it.
Wow.
Because it was like Handycam.
Oh.
Yeah, the digital hasn't come out yet. It's
Gotcha.
also like a 3-hour movie, and I refuse to go to the theater for a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah, I'm an old man.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, but overall, I like the movie. I hope they come up with a sequel, and we keep with the party, and everyone comes back, and there's some sort of thing that happens.
Yeah.
Because now they're the heroes of Neverwinter. Just in typical D&D shit.
But also, let's also be honest. At a certain point, it's like there's little to nothing that actually keeps this party together, like you do in a normal how do I keep everyone on track? I don't know. One dude wants to go get his daughter and save her. They don't actually give a shit about anything else that's going on. It's just getting the daughter, and then they end up saving the city.
Because everyone has their own motivations. I mean, arguably, Helga and Edward are together.
Yep.
But, like, the druid had a completely different thing that she wanted to do.
Yep.
She wanted to keep the Emerald Enclave because the current Lord of Neverwinter was destroying the forest.
Yep.
So they had, like, a mutual enemy.
Only reason why she got brought on and then, almost left because it looked like they weren't going to be able to do that. And she's like, then why am I here?
Yep. The sorcerer guy, I can't think of anyone.
Mostly money.
Mostly money.
Yeah. Literally, that's just that was his prerogative the whole time, is like, oh, money.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So hopefully, now that they're the heroes of Neverwinter, there's another thing for them.
Yeah. Probably to extend further into, the Red Wizards and Fae, since they just totally destroyed their plan.
Maybe, yeah, it would be interesting where they would go. I mean, it's D&D, that you can make up whatever.
Yeah.
Just like I've done.
Exactly.
Well, even like some of the pre-written stuff is very much like, go do this thing. All right, now we need to go do this other thing.
Yep. To talk, actual like reasons why you're there in D&D. So, Horde of the Dragon Queen, prequel to Rise of Tiamat, or the first half of Tyranny of Dragons. It even tells you, so you're heading to a city called Greenest, and as you're approaching, you see it's being ransacked by, some sort of mob or whatever, which consists of quite a few goblins and other things, but there are humans and other people that are also involved. But it's like, what were your motivations to be heading here? Or whatever, and then you go through this sequence and you help people out in the town, and then it's like, oh, well, the town now wants you to go do other stuff, and it's the first time I went to run it, I didn't give anyone a preface to like, okay, here are your motivations for this. This is why you're going here, blah, blah, blah. Even though it did suggest some. No one followed through, and I go, oh, okay, so I'm, like the governor of this small town. Can you help me out and go figure out where all this loot that we just got ransacked went to? And the party goes, no. Like, come on, guys. Like, one, we know if I, being an NPC, have given you a quest, it's so that we can progress. And they're like, well, now we just want money. Like, well, fuck. I offered the money. No, we want more than that. God damn it, guys. And it's always something.
It's always something. Which is funny that they were money driven, because money is completely meaningless in D&D.
It really is. I mean, it is in most games.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you start off, you're like, oh my gosh, I need money. And then, like, maybe a couple hours into any game, you're like, I'm fucking loaded. I don't need shit.
Because the DM always like, all right, you get 20,000 in this horde. And you look at it like a farmer earns like maybe a gold piece every year or something like that.
Yeah.
So the party's already like bazillionaires.
Yeah, they just buy a whole fucking town. Yeah.
Especially if you defeat a dragon at some point, like the horde. Yeah.
Oh.
Anything else about the movie?
I really love their use of magical items too. Like they made it very like, it wasn't like, oh shit, everything's magical,
right?
But it was like, oh hey, here's magical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about the amulet that they got for the daughter could help you turn invisible.
Yep.
Which was the first magical item you saw, and then the sorcerer had the tablet to speak with dead.
Mm-hmm.
They had the staff.
And the staff, the portal staff.
The hither-thither staff.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then the scroll of resurrecting.
Yeah, the tablet.
Or tablet.
Of reawakening.
Reawakening, yeah.
Reawakening. There's a couple other magical things in there.
There are a couple things here and there. Nothing too crazy, which, I mean, honestly, in actual D&D, you're not supposed to have fucking magical weapons out the ass.
Yeah.
Even though that also happens.
The stones.
Oh, the sending stones, but I think that was an actual spell. Because he said they only lasted an hour.
No, that's an actual thing.
Well, I mean, I know they're an actual thing, but I also think there's a spell
you can cast?
You can cast to do something similar.
I wouldn't know. I've never really played a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Or a wizard. I know sending stones are a thing, and I think that they can last for an hour once a day.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, not a whole lot, but you would also, most of the magical items were held by the sorcerer, which, magical dude probably just has magical items and recognizes like, oh, hey, like literally looked at a stick and go, I know what that is. Bing, bing. Oh, hey, look.
Right. Maybe Helga, when she melted her axe, became a +1 axe.
Yeah. I think, because it would have been dwarven, so I feel like that would have been like a mithril or an adamantium axe to start with.
Maybe.
So.
Yeah. It's a lot of pretty good. If you're a hardcore D&D nerd, there's a lot in there. I could see how you may not like it as much if you weren't a D&D nerd, but I think it's still a good movie. It's a good fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, another thing too, in certain situations where one team member is just completely pathetic and doesn't help in any sort of combat, and then the other one's doing all the work, which happens twice, at least. Well, one of them, the dude says, I've got this. But then, another fight where at the beginning when they're getting ready to be killed in Neverwinter, and, she's asking about the axe and all that kind of stuff. And then here's Holga, like, beating the shit out of all these guys, throwing them around, like, literally punching people with steel helmets on, just in the face. And then here's Edward just trying to saw through his ropes on the side of the steps, and then finally gets a hold of a sword and tries to do it, and then just kills or not kills, but, like, takes care of the last guy, and that's it.
It's failing your roles to escape. Absolutely. And then finally getting free, and then doing something.
Yep.
I wish going back to him being a bard, I wish he would have been spitting out inspiration or something. He does say, good things to Helga, but it would have been
right,
maybe a little bit more on the nose or obvious for him.
Like, look out behind you, or duck, or something.
Something that would have been like, oh, that's inspiration for another D10.
Hit him in the crotch.
I mean, he was saying a couple of things, but not enough to be like, oh, that's obviously inspiration. One party member does all the work, and the one person does one thing and cleans up.
Yeah,
that happens a lot. Good times.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, it covers most of it, I think.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy the movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yep. I think it's on HBO as well.
Is it?
I think so.
I have no idea.
I think it hit HBO before it hit anything else, because HBO gets things early release.
Might be on Netflix, too.
Unless it's a Sony product, then Starz gets it.
Those jerks.
Yep.
I don't have anything else.
I don't either.
Yeah. It's going to be a shorter episode.
Yep, short and sweet, but it's something for you. And if you've watched the movie, hit us up on our socials. Let us know what you thought was the coolest or the funniest or the best part of the movie. If you think the movie sucked, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we can't do anything about it, but,
Well, I'll write a stern letter.
Tim Farr will write a stern letter to the makers of Dungeons & Dragons movie.
Yep. I will put it on some social media and have it.
See if they respond back.
Yes.
But it has to be snail mail, actual letter.
Okay.
No electronic, actual letter.
Dear Mr. Hollywood, maybe we'll review the other 3 movies. I'm sure we'll watch them at some point.
Yep.
We'll get it back into the D&D editions when Phil's here. We'll probably talk about 2E, which is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Ooh.
2, which is 2E. We'll talk about that. But hopefully next week, I will kill everyone with a dragon.
Hell yeah, dude.
A nasty, fat.
Like I said, Sneal just slip away if everybody dies.
Oh, that'd be good. I've been thinking about making him now a fat, pudgy dragon.
You can make it for the last one that we fight.
Yeah. No, the last one needs to be more agile.
So it can be the second to last one.
Okay, it'll be the fat one.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's taken us time to get there, and that dragon was already lazy to start with, and now it's only been lazier as he gets fed
Sure. Humans.
for fucking, months now.
Because you decided to pull from the deck of many things and go to hell.
Yup.
It's crazy that we're only in like session 48 or 49.
That's true. Yeah.
And we've been playing for over a year. But
We've taken a big hiatus for
almost
a little while, and then couple. Well, I don't think we had really missed anything before that hiatus. I think we had something out every week when we started, but then we had. Now we're a little bit more lax and not trying to get every week. So
yeah, that's true.
So now we're just slow rolling it.
Hopefully next week I'll murder everyone with dragons.
Yep.
As the Battle of Bearborn proceeds.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
The BS role is Timothy Farr as our forever DM, Valerie Simone as Ida Gotham, Nick Urban as Snee, Phil Jaycox as Enoch Sunforger, Ryan Freeman as Babylon Wonderhoof. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and wherever podcasts can be found. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a review. It helps us a lot. We do not advertise, so our ratings and reviews are the best way to help us grow. Thank you so much. Love you a lot. Have a good one.